Hello, and welcome to Power Up Your SUP Performance with me, Dr. Audrey Lee. In this episode, I'm here to introduce myself so you know who I am and why I'm here to help you power up your SUP performance. I grew up loving to move, always wanting to move. I was a swimmer, dancer, and gymnast from age 6 through college and loved it. My deep down dream was to be a superhero, which didn't work out. So my next dream was to be a professional athlete. And I was always fascinated, could even say obsessed with the whole notion of doing your best. Do you know what I mean? Have you had that experience growing up or even now when someone says, paddle harder, I'm doing my best. Work on your turns, I'm doing my best. But what does it mean to do your best? What is your best? And this is a little bit about what that is. Your best, reaching your highest potential. You might not have even tapped into it yet. So when you learn how to power up your SUP performance based on science, evidence-based research, you will go far. You will be going places. So, as I said, grew up as an athlete, trained every day, competed. That's all I knew. That's my life. Loved that life. Gymnastics, got hurt a bunch. Swimming, loved the water. I had shoulder tendonitis. So the options were given to me is stop swimming, get an operation, or cortisol shots. So I decided to stop swimming. And then I transitioned from swimming, endurance sport, to cycling, specifically road cycling. It's all relative. So swimming a 500, 1,000, or 1,650 or mile swim, and then going into road cycling where I competed centuries, 100-mile races, 5 hours in the saddle, sometimes more. Learning by trial and error. That's really what happened with the nutrition. I was out there, I knew how to train. I can train and train hard, but I didn't have the nutrition. Bonking. Have you ever experienced a bonk before? Hitting that wall where it's just, it hurts. It feels terrible. And that was part of that trial and error. So as I was cycling, I also happened to be in Europe, in Austria, the Institute for Sports Science in Innsbruck, Austria is where I went to school and I got my PhD. So I got to focus on reaching my highest potential as a competitive road cyclist, studying sports science, where our classes were about creating experiments, adjusting certain things in our training routine on the hypothesis that this adjustment, this tweaking would improve performance. So nutrition, some of the experiments it did, and say growing up in my past, different breakfasts. What do you eat for breakfast and what effect does it have on your performance? And that's just an example of some of the things that we will be exploring here in this podcast. But what I loved, I mean, it wasn't anything, I was going to say trial and error anymore. This was science, scientifically backed. So something that was done and proven could be applied to you in your own life. So theory came to life in the lab, got to explore different ways to improve performance, specifically looking at nutrition, sports nutrition for before, during, and after your training or racing, so that you can go faster, you would have more energy so you could be strong to the finish, and recover faster so that your next training session or the next competition, you're fully charged, recharged, re-energized, reinvigorated refueled, so that you're reaching your highest potential as often as possible. And so to round out my education, I came back to the United States and I got my master's degree in nutrition at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. And the plan for me was to work with cyclists, as I did. That was my background. Finished school and I started working with Team Roger C. Peace, Greenville Cycling Center, Paralyzed Veterans of America Racing, not all at the same time, but these are different teams that I got to work with, where I got to use my specific education and experience to work with these athletes and to help them with their nutrition. I would create menus for the teams when we're on the road or at home and get the foods, sometimes even prepare them myself. So all of the different foods for before, during, and after training and racing. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. I was going shopping every single day. I was loading up on bananas, and other secret, not so secret ingredients when you pay close attention and you stay tuned and you listen to other podcasts so that you can learn more. But that's what I did. I worked with the cyclists. I organized training camps that included training and recovery, stretching, nutrition, and educational sessions. So this will be educational and hopefully also entertaining. We'll share recipes and really delve into the science. Really delve into the science of what is proven for your nutrition, right? So we have food and drink, or sport nutrition foods. Hydration, we're going to talk about it. Oh, staying hydrated has many effects on our performance, and that will be one of our sections and sessions that we focus upon. But a little more into the detail and background. So from cycling all around Europe, incredible, amazing landscapes and places to see. Then he came back to the United States, and in the United States, it's just not the same. It's just not the same. I transitioned again. I was in the mountains. I transitioned to skiing. Alpine, downhill skiing. Amazing, amazing, floating on snow. So I did scientific experiments on myself using my skills and education and creating the perfect fueling plan to ski 117 to 120 days per season, maintaining performance, maintaining energy level, and preventing injuries. So that was my whole thing. It's like, hey, I'm going to utilize all this information that I've been studying on myself, apply it to a different sport. I grew up endurance sport and then moved into snow sports. Totally different, yet not. So totally different in the movements, in what you're doing. However, your body still needs nutrition. So got that super dialed in. And then after ski season, what did I do with myself? After waking up every single day, super stoked and excited to go out and ski. I mean, literally wake up in the morning, check the blinds, look outside because I can see the mountains from my backyard. So I look outside like, oh, based on the weather, double check the weather app. What's going on? I'm going to be at this round. I'm going to hit this step. There's new snow. After all that excitement, then spring, summer, I wouldn't know what to do with myself because I just didn't have that same something to be passionate about. Yes, I loved cycling, but then I'd be doing that by myself. And it's like, that's okay, but I'd love to do these sports and enjoy them with friends. I mean, like that's part of it. Friendly competition with your friends, that you're out there, you're pushing each other, you're challenging each other, and you're supporting one another. It's fun. We used to call it Sufferfest with friends. And so I fell in love with stand-up paddleboarding. SUP racing to be exact. So story behind this, fun story. One spring after ski season, a friend of mine found free paddleboard lessons. Like, oh, free intro to SUP. And I was like, I don't know what that is. Sure, I'll go. Sounds cool. Let's go. Went and did it. So where I live in Park City, Utah, and there's a little pond that's near Deer Valley Ski Resort. This little pond, it's about 1/3 of a mile, and it's surrounded by mountains. So it's protected, doesn't get major wind. There's obviously no boat traffic there. It's calm, it's totally calm. So went, did the lesson, was like, oh, it's kind of cool. Like, that's all right. What else can you do with this? And I happened to see a bunch of people there playing around, whatever. And I was like, could be all right. And then I also teach fitness classes, TRX, ski conditioning, cycling training, yoga. One of the yoga instructors also taught SUP yoga, and she reached out to me and was like, hey, I need a sub. Will you sub for me? I never even heard of SUP yoga before. So I was like, SUP yoga? Wow, that sounds interesting. How about I take your class and then I'll let you know. Took her class and I was like, yeah, I love this. So much fun. It tied in my background from childhood. For those of you that are swimmers and swim in pools, do you remember as a kid, we used to always, whenever possible, you got kickboards, we'd try to balance on kickboards. And one of my dreams, of my many dreams growing up, was like, I'm gonna learn how to surf. So you'd stand on that paddle, you'd stand on the kickboard and try to balance for as long as possible. And then boom, it'd go shooting out of the pool across the thing. And then the lifeguard, you, or your coach, you. Anyway, it kind of brought that feeling back, right? Fun, playful, balance, shaking around. And what are the consequences? You fall in the water on a hot summer day. That's great. So long story short, I started teaching SUP yoga, and I was at that SUP shop, and it was an outdoor shop, kind of a beach on that pond. And I'd see all the different people paddling with their doggies. There were SUP fitness classes. And because I was there, I was involved. I was like, hey, I started taking every class I could. I was also a master trainer for a fitness program. So I would do the routines for this fitness program on a paddleboard, because my thinking was, when I can do this on a paddleboard, shaky, unstable surface, then when I'm on my equipment, I'm going to be a rock star. So I was. That's what I did. So the owner of the shop challenged all of the employees, including me, the SUP yoga instructor. I challenge you all to do a SUP race. All I knew was that little old pond. So I was like, all right, how hard can that be? I'm down, because of my background with open water swimming and all the other stuff, athletics. Yeah, I'm open to challenge. How hard can that be? It still came back to that. How hard could this be? I thought it was so easy. So I went and did a race, a local race in the Salt Lake City area. And I stepped out of that pond area into a reservoir, and it was windy. It was windy. I want to say it was freaking windy. And I was like, what is this? Never before have I experienced something like that. So they had their elite group. It was like 5 people. And then they had the main group of people, men and women all together. I don't remember what the distance was. I can look it up. So I went out there. I had just learned crossbow turns the day before. And I was like, I got this. I got there and I was like, what am I going to do with this? So I did finish. I actually ended up coming in third for the women's group. It's also because there weren't very many women there. And it was so challenging that it intrigued me. I was like, I am going to learn how to do this. And so I did. I kept following and doing more training. And then I started learning about stand-up paddleboard racing, the different people. Story I was put on all kinds of boards. Like the shop had all these boards. They'd be like, here, try this board. Here, try this board. Tell me how it feels. And I'd try out all these different boards. There was one board I was on one day. It was a bark board, blue, and had this like little heart, had a little something. They're like, that's a Candace Appleby. And I didn't know what. I was like, I didn't even know that was the name of a person, an athlete. My response was like, it's a what? I had no idea. But then I learned, and I started learning like, wow, who are these athletes? Started watching things, looking at videos, and learned about some of these races outside of our state, outside of mountain states, specifically California, and out open ocean. Like, wow, amazing. Yes, this is for me. I want to do this. And so I learned about Pacific Paddle Games, Dana Point, California. And that for me was like a child and just like dreaming about these things. To me, Dana Point Pacific Paddle Games, that was the mecca of paddleboarding. So I thought, wow, I need to get out there. And so I did. I got out there. I used my experience in education to create a training plan, a nutrition plan to train. And then I got out there. And I also watched Anthony Vela, race organizer, explained or pointed out things or ways to prepare for PPG, Pacific Paddle Games. So I paid close attention to every single tip that he gave. I was like, oh man, I got to learn all of this stuff. So I did as best as I could, all of those things. And I went out there and it was super challenging and I loved it. And not only the sport, because I love sport. What I really loved is the way of feeling powerful in your body. I wasn't the best, I wasn't the worst, but I also knew that there was room for improvement. That was my first ever big race, open ocean. It wasn't challenging conditions for people that train out there, but for me, paddling lot water, whoa, that was intense. But again, for me, also knowing you can learn all of these things. My nutrition was dialed in. So I started to learn even more, And I was surprised. What was I surprised about? Was that stand-up paddleboard racing was not or did not include the same type of nutrition as cycling did. And what I mean by including is that there wasn't the awareness that with cycling, every athlete was super dialed in. That was my job. My job was a sport nutrition coach for these different teams. I was a performance coach for these different teams. These teams had all of these different coaches. They had some had private chefs. I was multi-role. So in some of them, I was the sport nutrition coach, I was the chef, and I was the performance coach, helping or specializing in recovery training with them. And so what I was surprised about is that why isn't every athlete doing this stuff? Why doesn't every athlete, specifically paddleboard athletes, why are they not paying attention to their nutrition? I'd ask people questions like, what do you do for this? What's your routine for this? Like, routine? I don't have any routine. It's like, what? And so then I thought like, hey, this is a way that I can contribute to something that I love. So long story short, that is why I'm here. This is what this podcast is all about. I'm using my education and my experience to continue improving performance, to help you continue improving performance. So I will be sharing sports nutrition and training science to help you navigate the waters of information. What's good, helpful information? What products are good, helpful products? And what's misinformation? The myths, misconceptions, to bring some clarity to these things so that you can make more informed choices for yourself and to see and feel a difference in your SUP performance. Power up your SUP performance. My main focus is eating real food. So you might find that to be an interesting concept with all of these sport nutrition products. I will be talking about as many different products as possible. And as I shared before, Do reviews so you can understand. I'll share. What does it mean? How do you read the labels? When should I be using these things? Is this really effective? So I'll be sharing the science of it. I will be sharing scientific experiments. I'll be sharing the research. Here's research that shows what was done with these athletes in this particular scenario. How can this be applied to you and what you're doing? Or also talking to people that are doing it. I'll be sharing my experience and the experience of athletes and coaches. What works, what doesn't work, and more. So I'd like to thank you all so much for your time and for your energy and for your attention. And please reach out. This is fluid, just like the water in which we paddle in, right? It's ever changing, as is nutrition. But our human body is our human body. What works for the human body works. So we're going to learn. We're going to learn and use this information to power up our SUP performance. So look forward to next time. Thank you all again.